Hey there. Settle in close to the warmth of the fire with me, and forget the polished fairy tales you were handed when you were younger. The truth is darker, softer to listen to, if we tell it slowly, but darker all the same. Tonight, we're going to follow a king of gods who is terrified like a mortal, a queen of wisdom who trusts the wrong smile, and a child who is born in a way that makes even immortals look away. You'll hear about 3 things that should not happen in any gentle story. A goddess swallowed whole while she is still carrying life inside her. A skull split open by a bronze axe, not in anger, but in necessity. And a battle cry that shakes a mountain, even though the newborn is already wearing armor. If you find a strange kind of peace in this shadowed myth, go ahead and leave a like, and maybe subscribe. It helps this quiet corner of the night keep glowing. Now, lower the lights if you can. Let your shoulders drop, just a little. Unclench your jaw. Feel the slow rise and fall of your breath, as if the fire itself is breathing with you. Good. I always feel something uncanny when we talk about Zeus. Honestly, people say his name like thunder, like certainty. But if you listen carefully, beneath the thunder there is a nervous sound, the small, private sound of a ruler imagining his own end. Picture Mount Olympus not as a shining postcard, but as a vast, cold palace of stone and cloud. The corridors are too wide, the ceilings are too high, torches hiss when the wind slips through the cracks. Marble floors hold the chill of the night, the way deep water holds winter. Even the air tastes sharp, like metal after lightning. Zeus sits at the center of it, wrapped in power and yet, in a strange way, wrapped in loneliness too. A throne can be a warm seat. It can also be a cliff edge, and the king is always aware of the drop. Before Athena was a name spoken with reverence in cities, before owls watched from temple roofs, there was Metis, wise counsel, cunning intelligence, the kind of mind that can untie knots without cutting the rope. Ancient voices describe her as a titaness who could change shape as easily as a thought changes direction. I want you to imagine that ability, the way you might imagine a dream shifting. One moment you're standing in a field, the next you're underwater, and somehow it feels seamless. That was Metis. Fluid, clever, hard to hold, and she mattered. During the Titanomachy, the war that was more like a storm than a battle, Metis was not the loudest force on the field. She wasn't the one who lifted mountains or hurled boulders. She did something subtler. She gave Zeus a plan, a potion, something bitter and brilliant that made Kronos, the old tyrant, spill back the children he had swallowed. You know that feeling, don't you? When you've carried something wrong inside you for too long, and your body finally rejects it. The heaving, the burning throat, the ugly inevitability of it. The myth takes that sensation and makes it cosmic. Kronos retched up gods like stolen jewels, one after another, slick with the darkness of his belly. Zeus won his throne, and in the aftermath of that victory, he noticed Metis in a new way, not just as an ally, as an equal. That word is dangerous around kings. Their union, however, was never only romance. It was politics. It was strategy. It was the uneasy marriage of raw force and refined thought. And then the fates spoke. The Moirai, the ones who measure and cut, who do not raise their voices because they don't need to. Their prophecy arrived like a cold draft under a door. Metis would bear 2 children. First, a daughter, extraordinary in wisdom and in the disciplined art of war. Second, a son whose strength and intelligence would surpass Zeus, and the son would overthrow him. When I picture Zeus hearing this, I don't imagine him roaring. I imagine the opposite, a stillness, a pause so deep that even the torches seem to hesitate, because there is nothing louder than a fear you cannot punch. Zeus knew the pattern. It was written into his own hands. Uranus, the sky, had been brought down by his son, Kronos. Kronos, the devourer, had been brought down by his son, Zeus. A throne in Greek myth is not a chair, it's a wound, passed down through generations. And Zeus, king, thunder, Law felt something very human, paranoid dread. He walked the halls at night when the other gods slept, or pretended to. His bare feet made a faint sound on the stone, softer than you'd expect from a being who can shake the world. He would pass columns carved with victories, past tapestries of cosmic battles, and none of it calmed him, because prophecy isn't an enemy you can exile. It follows you like your own shadow. He watched Hera from a distance and wondered who might smile at his weakness. He watched Apollo's calm face and wondered what else the god of prophecy knew. He listened to the wind and imagined it carrying whispers from the fates. And in the center of all of that worry, there was Metis, pregnant with the first child, the daughter. Metis moved through Olympus with a kind of quiet grace, and I always find that detail heartbreaking. She is wisdom itself, and yet wisdom does not always protect you from being loved by someone who wants to own you. Zeus wanted her counsel. Zeus wanted her power. Zeus wanted her mind inside his mind. But Zeus did not want her destiny, so he began to think like his father, while telling himself he was better. Kronos had swallowed his children after they were born. Zeus decided to be smarter, earlier, preemptive, clinical. He would consume Metis before the second child could ever exist in the open world. It's strange, isn't it? How cruelty often dresses itself as prevention. How a tyrant can call himself a protector while tightening his fist. Zeus practiced his smile, the charming one, the one that makes other gods relax. He chose his moment, the way a hunter chooses when to breathe. And Metis trusted him. Or maybe she simply couldn't imagine betrayal from someone who had called her equal. That, to me, is the darkest part. Not the swallowing, not the prophecy, the trust. The night he decided to act, Olympus was quiet. There's a particular kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Birds settle. The air grows heavy. Even the firelight looks sluggish, as if it's thinking twice about flickering. Zeus invited Metis to play. Not a cruel game, not openly. A contest, a flirtation, a demonstration of her shape-shifting skill, framed as admiration. "Show me," he implied, "how brilliant you are." Metis laughed softly, warmly, and the sound echoed down a marble corridor like a drop of water in a cave. And Zeus listened, and Zeus planned. He told himself the same lie that so many powerful beings tell themselves, that his fear was wisdom. The prophecy sat in his chest like a stone. Each breath pushed against it. He could feel his own heartbeat, steady and royal, and yet it sounded to him like a countdown. Metis stepped closer. The candlelight made a thin gold rim along her hair. Her eyes held that bright, quick intelligence that can solve a problem before you've finished explaining it. If she noticed the tension in Zeus's shoulders, if she sensed the way his fingers flexed and unflexed, as if around an invisible weapon, she did not retreat. And that is where we will pause, right at the edge of the betrayal. Because in a moment, the King of Gods will try to swallow fate itself. And fate, as you'll feel with me, does not dissolve so easily. Let me linger with you in that corridor a little longer, because the details are what make this myth feel real enough to sink into your bones. There's a smell in Olympus at night that no one talks about. Not perfume, not incense, stone, cold mineral, a faint sweetness from burning cedar in braziers that are never allowed to go out. And underneath it, if you breathe slowly, you can almost sense the ozone of Zeus's own power, as if lightning has left a memory on the air. Metis's footsteps are quieter than Zeus's, not because she is smaller, but because she moves like someone who has learned to listen before she arrives. Her bare ankles brush the hem of her robe. The fabric whispers across the floor. Every now and then the wind slides in from an open terrace and lifts the cloth. just for a second, as if the mountain itself wants to see whether she is truly there. And she is. She is carrying a child that will not be hidden. I always imagine that pregnancy in a way that is almost tender, not glowing, not romantic, just present. A subtle weight, a slight change in the way she rests her hands on her belly when she thinks no one is watching. A pause before she steps down a stair. Because even a goddess can feel the logic of balance, the shift of center, the small caution that comes with creating life. Zeus watches that too. He watches her hand drift there, and something like sorrow passes through him. Then it hardens into calculation. That's the cruel alchemy of fear. It takes softness and turns it into stone. The fate's words keep repeating in his mind, not as a sentence, but as a rhythm. Daughter, son, overthrow. It beats against his skull, the way waves beat a cliff. Patient, inevitable, not in a hurry. Zeus tries to drown it out with sound, with commands, with feasts, with the laughter of other gods. But when laughter fades, the rhythm returns. Have you ever tried to fall asleep while your mind insists on replaying one thought? The same worry, the same regret, the same what if? You turn your pillow, you shift your legs, you tell yourself it's nothing, and still the thought returns, like a hand tapping your shoulder in the dark. That is Zeus. Except his what if is a cosmos falling apart. So he does what anxious rulers always do. He creates control where none exists. He chooses a game, because games look harmless. They wear innocence. They let you get close, without admitting you are hunting. Show me, he says again, and he makes his voice warm, not loud, not kingly, intimate, like a secret shared between two minds. He praises her. He reminds her of her cleverness. He lets her feel admired, because admiration is a door you can walk through when trust is locked. Metis' smile is genuine. I know that, in my bones. It's the smile of someone who has survived a war and still believes partnership is possible. She has seen Zeus at his most desperate, battling his father, taking risks that would have crushed lesser gods. She has seen him grateful. She has seen him listen. So why wouldn't she believe him now? They stand near an open balcony where the sky is a deep, bruised blue. Clouds drift below the ledge like slow-moving smoke. Far down, the mortal world is a dim tapestry of darkness, with occasional orange pinpricks where someone's fire still burns in a hut. The distance makes it all seem peaceful, safe, as if tragedy can't reach that far. A single candle sits on a stone table beside them. The flame is small, steady, patient. It throws a trembling shadow of Zeus's profile onto the wall, and for a moment, his shadow looks like a stranger, bigger, sharper, like the outline of a beast that hasn't decided whether it wants to be seen. Metis begins. First she becomes a hawk, feathers catching the candlelight with a bronze shimmer. The bird's eyes are still her eyes, bright and assessing. It tilts its head as if measuring Zeus's reaction. The air stirs as wings move, a soft pressure against skin. Then she becomes a lioness, paws silent on the stone. The muscles in her shoulders roll like waves under fur. Her breath is warm, smelling faintly of wild grass and fresh blood from some hunt we are not meant to witness. She circles Zeus once, playful, confident. Then she becomes water, just a ribbon of it sliding across the marble, reflecting the candle like a broken mirror. The sound is delicate, almost like whispering silk. She gathers again into a woman, laughing softly at her own trick. Zeus laughs too, but his laughter is timed, measured, like a step in a ritual. He keeps encouraging her to go smaller. Smaller is more impressive, he says. Smaller is more difficult. Smaller is more beautiful. Metis, proud and amused, agrees. She becomes a sparrow, then a beetle, then something so tiny it's almost an idea. A bright insect, a fly, a droplet trembling on the edge of a cup, and Zeus's throat tightens, because this is the moment he has chosen. This is the moment he has rehearsed in the privacy of his fear, the way you might rehearse a difficult conversation before you ever speak it. He leans in, his shadow covers the candle for a second, and the flame dips, as if it is startled. The tiny-shaped Metis in miniature hovers, trusting, showing off, still playful. Zeus opens his mouth, not in a roar, not in a kiss, in a simple motion that looks almost casual, and that casualness is what makes it monstrous. We're right here with them, at the edge of that breath, at the hinge of that second. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the sound the myth never writes down, the soft click of inevitability, like a lock turning in the dark. There is a kind of silence that follows a betrayal. Even in myth, Zeus's lips close, his throat moves once, twice, and the tiny bright thing that was Metis is gone, sliding into darkness as easily as a swallowed breath. The candle flame straightens again, as if it never faltered. The clouds below the balcony keep drifting. Somewhere far away, a mortal dog barks, unaware that a titaness has just been erased from the open air. Zeus stands very still. If you've ever done something you cannot undo, you know that stillness. Your body freezes, as if motion might invite consequences faster. Your mind waits for the universe to react. For a heartbeat, Zeus expects thunder. Not his thunder, someone else's. The fates, perhaps. He expects the floor to crack, the sky to split, the palace to shudder, as if Olympus itself disapproves. Nothing happens, and that nothing feels like permission. He lets out a slow breath that tastes of metal. He presses his palm against the cold stone railing. The chill bites into his skin, grounding him. He tells himself, it's finished. The prophecy has been swallowed along with the mother. He is safe. But safety in these stories is always temporary, like warmth from a fire that looks generous until you step away and realize the room is still winter. Inside, Zeus, Metis, does not die. I want you to picture what that means, not as gore, not as something loud, but as a strange, enclosed night. Divine bodies don't work like ours. A god's stomach is not simply an organ. It is a realm, a pocket of power, a place where swallowed things can remain, suspended, altered, contained. Metis awakens in darkness that isn't empty. There is a pulse all around her, slow and deep, like the beat of a drum heard through stone. There is warmth, but not comforting warmth, more like the warmth of being too close to a living wall. The air, if we can call it air, tastes like Zeus's essence, sharp, electric, constantly moving, and she understands, not all at once, not with a neat sentence. Understanding arrives as a weight in her chest, a sorrowful certainty. Her hands drift to her belly in the dark, the way they did in the corridor, and now that gesture is not tender. It is protective, instinctive, desperate. Truly, I can almost hear her say it, though myths rarely grant her voice. Truly, you did this. It's strange how even wisdom can be surprised by cruelty. She tries to shift shape, because that is her nature, to adapt. She becomes mist. She becomes a thread of water. She becomes something sharp and small. But there is nowhere to go. Zeus's body is a sealed palace, a prison made of immortal flesh and willpower. So Metis does what wisdom always does when trapped. She begins to work. If you've ever been awake at night, unable to change your situation, you know what I mean. The mind starts building, planning, preparing. Even in captivity, the mind refuses to be idle. Metis turns inward, toward her child, toward the daughter who is still forming. She pours counsel into that forming life, not with words, but with essence. She gives her the feel of strategy, the way a mother might hum a lullaby. She teaches her patience. She teaches her how to wait for the right moment, how to read a room, how to understand an enemy's weakness without hating them. And somewhere in that dark internal realm, a new sound begins. A tapping, not on stone, on bone. Because the child does not stay in Zeus's belly like an ordinary swallowed thing. The pregnancy shifts. It rises. It climbs. It becomes thought. Athena grows inside Zeus's head. The idea is unsettling when you sit with it. A life developing not in a womb, but in the seat of decision. The place where orders are formed before they become storms. It's as if Zeus has swallowed not just a woman, but the future of his own mind. At first, he doesn't notice. He goes on, ruling. He lifts his hand, and the sky obeys. He settles disputes among gods. With that familiar authority, he smiles at feasts. He receives offerings. He listens to petitions from below. But there are moments, quiet moments, when his gaze drifts, and he doesn't know why. When his thoughts snag on something sharp, like a splinter in silk. When he feels a faint pressure behind his eyes, the way you might feel a storm coming before you see clouds. At night, he dreams differently. He dreams of doors inside his skull. He dreams of metal ringing. He dreams of a girl's voice, not speaking, but shouting without sound. He wakes with his jaw clenched. His tongue tastes like lightning. He runs a hand through his hair as if he can smooth the dream away. He tells himself, it's nothing. He tells himself he is king. He tells himself he has won. And then, one morning, if morning exists on Olympus in the way it does for us, he feels pain. A sharp spike behind his forehead. A sudden, bright ache that makes his eyes water. It's so surprising that he laughs once, short and incredulous, as if his own body has made a joke. But the pain does not laugh back. It lingers. It blooms. It spreads. It becomes a headache so intense that even Zeus, who has survived wars, presses his fingertips to his temples like a mortal with a fever. The marble throne feels harder. The room feels louder. Even the gentle trickle of a fountain sounds like an insult. You know that sensation, don't you? When your head feels too full, when sound is sharp, when light is painful, when you can't find a position that makes it stop. Now imagine that, multiplied by divinity. The pressure builds inside Zeus's skull as Athena continues to grow, not as a helpless infant, as something already purposeful, something already armed in spirit, even before armor exists. Zeus tries to ignore it. Of course he does. He holds court. He listens to Hera's complaints. He waves away Ares's restlessness. He pretends the throbbing behind his eyes is merely an irritation, not a warning. But the pain keeps returning, each time more insistent. It arrives like a knock on the inside of a door he cannot open. It arrives like a drumbeat under his thoughts, disrupting every plan, every command. He becomes impatient, then irritable, then quietly frightened again. Because the pain does not respond to power, he calls for nectar. He calls for ambrosia. He calls for music, thinking perhaps sound can soothe it. The lyres play, soft and golden. But the ache remains, indifferent to beauty. He walks outside into cold air, hoping the wind will clear his head. The wind tastes clean. The clouds look calm, but the pressure remains, sitting behind his eyes like a hidden star that refuses to dim. He tries to sleep. Sleep will not come. In the dark of his chamber, Zeus turns from side to side. The sheets are cool, then too warm. The pillow feels wrong. His own thoughts feel loud. He hears the fire crackle in the hearth, and it sounds like bones snapping. He hears the faint drip of water in a distant hall, and it sounds like time. And inside his skull, Athena's presence is steady. Metis is there too, like a quiet ember, not dead, not silent, working. I always picture Metis crafting, even in that impossible place. If Athena is going to emerge, she will not emerge helpless. Metis shapes her daughter's mind the way a master weaver shapes a tapestry, thread by thread, pattern by pattern, with patience that is almost cruel in its precision. and then the pain becomes unbearable. One afternoon, Zeus is speaking, perhaps issuing a decree, perhaps scolding some lesser god, and his sentence breaks in half. His voice catches, his eyes widen. He grips the arm of his throne so hard the marble creaks. The other gods fall silent. You can feel that silence like a blanket thrown over a room, a hush that carries fear. Because when the king of gods looks weak, the world tilts. Zeus bends forward. His shoulders tremble. He presses both hands to his head. His fingers dig into his own hair as if he could pull the pain out by force. The pressure inside him surges, and he makes a sound, half growl, half groan, that echoes down the halls. Not thunder, something roar. Hera stands, lips tight, eyes narrowed. She doesn't rush to him. She watches. That is her own kind of power. Apollo looks uneasy. The healer god understands pain, and this pain is wrong. Ares leans forward, eager in a strange way, as if weakness is entertainment. Even quiet Hestia's flame seems to flicker uncertainly. Zeus tries to straighten. Pride fights agony. He lifts his chin, but the motion makes the pain spike so sharply that he sees white for a second. A blank flash that wipes the room away. He sways, and that is when the decision is made. He needs help, not counsel, not soothing words. A solution that involves metal and force. He calls for Hephaestus. The divine smith arrives with the slow, heavy gait of someone used to heat and labor. His hands smell of smoke and iron. His arms are marked by tiny burns, little pale scars where sparks have kissed skin over and over again. There is something comforting about him, honestly. Not because he is gentle, but because he is real in a way the other gods sometimes aren't. He works. He builds. He knows what it is to struggle. Hephaestus approaches Zeus and sees the king hunched like a mortal man in pain, and his expression tightens with concern and curiosity. What is it? He asks. Or perhaps he doesn't. Perhaps Zeus only gestures, unable to speak, teeth clenched. The request is unthinkable. Split my head. Open it. End this. Different versions of the myth argue over who suggested it, who dared to do it. But in this telling, in this slow and shadowed telling, I want you to imagine that Hephaestus hesitates, not from fear of Zeus, but from fear of the act itself. Because a god's skull is not meant to be opened. It is the vault of law, the crown of thunder. And still, Hephaestus nods. He goes to his forge. The forge is a place of constant night and day at once. Fire blooms there without apology. Heat presses against skin. The air is thick with the smell of charcoal and molten metal. You can hear the bellows sighing, like a giant sleeping beast. You can hear hammers striking, rhythmical, hypnotic, steady as a heartbeat. Hephaestus chooses bronze, not gold. Gold is too soft, too decorative. Bronze is honest. Bronze holds an edge. Bronze remembers the shape you force into it. He heats the metal until it glows, orange-white, bright enough to hurt the eyes. He lifts it with tongs, the way you might lift a dangerous truth, careful not to let it touch bare skin. Sparks rise like tiny, frantic stars. Sweat beads on his brow, sliding down his temple, darkening the ash on his cheek. He shapes an axe, not a clumsy tool, a precise one, a blade that can bite into divine bone along the line where skull plates meet. He knows the seams. He knows structure. He knows where to strike so the opening will happen cleanly, not as a shatter, but as a split. As he works, the sound of hammer on bronze becomes soothing, almost a steady pulse. If you let your breathing match it, you can feel sleep creeping closer, even as the story darkens. Back in the hall, Zeus waits. He waits with pain. He waits with pride. He waits with something like dread, because if his skull opens, what will come out? A cure? A monster? A prophecy laughing at him from inside his own mind? The gods gather, drawn by rumor and instinct. They stand at a distance, pretending they are witnesses, not voyeurs. Their faces are lit by torchlight, and the shadows make them look older, more severe, less like paintings on a vase and more like beings with sharp edges. Zeus kneels. Finally, that detail matters. The king of gods kneeling, not in worship, but in surrender to pain. Hephaestus returns, carrying the axe. The bronze gleams with a cold, steady light, as if it has swallowed the forge's fire, and is now holding it quietly. He positions himself behind Zeus. His grip tightens, his breath steadies. He listens, one last time, for any sign that this is wrong, and in the silence before the strike, you can almost hear Athena inside Zeus's skull, waiting, not frightened, ready. The air in the hall feels different now, heavier, as if every column is holding its breath. A torch sputters and throws a brief shower of sparks. One spark lands on the marble and dies with a tiny hiss. The sound is so small, yet in that silence it seems enormous, like the universe is making one last polite noise before something impossible happens. Zeus's hair, dark and thick, shifts in the faint draft. The skin at the back of his neck gleams with sweat. He clenches his hands in his lap, fingers intertwined so tightly that the knuckles pale. If you look closely, you can see the tremor in his wrists, the way pain makes even gods shake. Hephaestus raises the axe slowly, not dramatically. The motion is measured, almost respectful. Bronze catches the torchlight and sends it back in a thin line, like a blade of dawn. Somewhere beyond the open archways, clouds drift past the windows. The world outside is calm. The mortal world below keeps turning. No one down there knows that a new goddess is about to be born from a wound. And right before the bronze falls, Zeus closes his eyes, not in prayer, in endurance. That is the last soft moment. The bronze axe falls. It does not fall with rage. It falls with precision. The way a craftsman lowers a chisel to the exact grain of wood. Hephaestus's arms tighten. His shoulders lock. And for a fraction of a breath, the whole hall seems to narrow around that single descending edge. Then the blade meets Zeus's skull. There is a sound that is not quite thunder and not quite bone, something in between. A deep, metallic crack that travels through marble and column, through torch brackets and hanging tapestries, as if Olympus itself has been struck along its hidden seam. Zeus jerks, not away, but downward, like the blow has pushed him closer to the earth he rarely thinks about. His teeth clench so hard you can almost hear them grind. His hands, still intertwined, twist as if he's wringing pain into a rope, and the skull splits, not explosively, cleanly, a straight opening along the crown of the king's head, where the plates meet, where even immortality has a natural line of division. For a heartbeat, there is only a thin darkness in that split, like the gap between two closed doors. Then light, a sudden, hard gleam like polished bronze catching noon sun, except there is no noon here, only torchlight. The gleam comes from inside Zeus, from the place where thought is born, and it spills out into the hall in a sharp ribbon. I always feel a chill at this point, honestly. Not because of gore. The myth doesn't linger on blood the way a modern horror story would. The chill comes from the idea that the inside of a mind can open like a room, and something fully grown can step out. Athena emerges, not as a baby, not as a child in need of arms and milk and gentleness. She comes out as a presence, complete, upright, and already carrying the weight of decisions. Her helmet is bronze, fitted as if it has always belonged to her. A dark plume rises from its crest, trembling slightly in the air currents of the hall. Strands of hair slip beneath it, black as smoke. Her eyes are gray, the color of storm clouds when they decide to become rain, the color of stone after it has been washed clean. In her right hand, a spear. The shaft is straight, balanced, not ornamental. It looks like a tool as much as a weapon, the way a needle is a tool and also a sharp promise. In her left arm, a shield, and the shield is not plain. It bears the aegis, the protective skin, the sign that she carries authority as well as strength. She takes one step forward, and the room seems to adjust around her, like the air itself is making space. Then she cries out. A war cry, yes, but not mindless. Not the ecstatic scream of violence for its own sake. It is a shout that sounds like clarity, like command, like the snap of a plan falling into place. It hits the columns and bounces back. Torches flicker. The flames bend as if a sudden wind has passed. Somewhere outside, clouds scatter as if startled. The gods who have gathered do not move. Even Ares, restless and hungry for battle, holds still, because this is not his kind of birth. This is not frenzy. This is something colder. Hephaestus steps back, the axe still in his hands, his breath coming fast. The bronze blade is unharmed. It gleams calmly, as if it has done what it was made to do and is now waiting for the next task. Zeus's pain is gone. It vanishes in an instant, leaving behind that strange emptiness you feel when a long illness suddenly lifts. Relief can be dizzying. You can feel your own body again. You can hear sounds that pain had muffled. You can think without a constant throbbing interrupting every thought. Zeus lifts his head slowly. His eyes blink, as if light is new. He reaches up, careful, and his fingertips touch the edge of the split, not in panic, but in disbelief. He should be furious. A king does not like being opened. A god does not like being handled. And yet what rises in him first is not anger. It is awe. Because the prophecy has happened, and it has happened in a way that makes his own cunning look small. The daughter stands before him, the first half of the fate's warning, made flesh and bronze. She is wisdom that can walk, strategy that can speak, discipline that can look you in the eye and make you feel examined. And Metis is not visible, not in the hall, not in any corner where a goddess might hide. But I swear, you can feel her influence in the way Athena holds her spear, in the way she watches the room, taking in every face, every posture, every flicker of doubt. Athena looks at Zeus. There is no fear in her gaze. There is recognition, perhaps, an understanding that he is her father, and also, in a certain sense, her thief. She has been born from his mind, but she carries her mother inside her, like a secret script under the armor. Zeus rises, not quickly. His knees straighten with a careful steadiness, as if he is learning how to stand in a new world. His hair is damp with sweat, and the torchlight makes small beads of it shine on his brow. He wants to claim her. Of course he does. He wants to say, "This is my daughter, my creation, my victory over prophecy." But he also feels something else, a thin thread of worry, sliding beneath his pride. Because the second child was the true threat, the son, the one who would surpass him. Zeus's gaze drops for a fraction of a second, not to Athena's face, but to her shield, to the aegis, to the symbols of protection and terror. And in that brief glance, you can see his mind calculating again, even as he smiles. Athena's birth is a miracle. It is also a warning. The gods begin to murmur, quietly at first, then with more confidence. Hera's eyes sharpen. Apollo's expression grows thoughtful. Ares shifts his weight, impatient now that the shock is passing. Hestia watches with that old calm, as if she has seen too many beginnings and endings to be surprised. Athena turns her head slightly, listening. She does not need to speak to show authority. It sits on her like the helmet sits on her brow. And then she does something small, something that feels intimate in the midst of all this grandeur. She lowers her spear tip to the marble floor. Just the tip, a touch, a tiny sound, a soft click. It is the sound of a decision being anchored. The spear does not scratch the marble, because divine metal respects divine stone. but the gesture is unmistakable. I am here. I am ready. I will not be a decoration. Zeus takes a step toward her. He wants to embrace her, perhaps to make the room believe they are united. His arms lift slightly, but he hesitates. He remembers swallowing Metis. He remembers the fly, the droplet, the moment of closing his mouth. He wonders, in a quiet corner of his mind, whether Athena remembers too. Athena does not step back. She stands her ground with a stillness that is almost soothing to watch, like a lake that holds the sky in its surface without trembling. Zeus's hand rests briefly on her shoulder, careful not to treat her like a child, careful not to treat her like an enemy. His palm feels the cool curve of her armor, the hard certainty of metal. There is no softness there, no newborn warmth. It is as if she has always been. The hall breathes again. Torches steady. Murmurs settle into a low background hum. The moment of rupture becomes, slowly, a new normal. That's how power works. It absorbs shock, rearranges itself, and continues. And yet, if you listen under the hum, there is another sound, a faint echo. Athena's war cry has left a vibration in the stone, a lingering tremor that says something has changed, something irreversible. Later, poets will say this birth proves Athena is wisdom itself, born from thought, free from the mess of ordinary bodies. Philosophers will nod and turn it into metaphor, clean and bright. But I keep thinking about Metis, about a mother swallowed to prevent a child who might overthrow a king, and about how the king's attempt to control destiny created a daughter who carries both obedience and independence in the same breath. It makes me feel that soft sadness again, the kind that can lull you if you let it, the sadness of patterns repeating, the sadness of power trying to protect itself by doing the very thing it fears. Athena stands in Olympus now, a new light in an old palace, and somewhere inside Zeus, deep where even gods don't look often, the prophecy still has room to breathe. Silence stretches after a miracle. In that quiet, smaller noises become clear. A sandal scuffs. A torch pops. Somewhere high in the rafters, a thin draft threads its way through carved stone and makes a hanging banner whisper against the wall. Athena does not rush to fill the silence. She lets the pause do its work. Her eyes travel over the faces gathered there. It feels, when you imagine it, like standing under the gaze of an owl at dusk, that uncanny moment when you realize the bird has been watching you for a long time and you are the one who is late to understanding. Zeus tries to speak. The words catch in his throat like a knot. He swallows. He tastes iron and old fear, the kind of fear that sits in the body even when the mind insists it is in control. Because Zeus has seen this pattern before. He remembers Kronos. He remembers the laugh of a father who thought he could beat time by swallowing his children. Zeus remembers the muffled dark inside that belly, the sticky heat, the heartbeat like a drum behind a wall. And now, he has swallowed Metis. He has made himself into the very thing he hated. You know that feeling, don't you? When you catch yourself repeating something you swore you would never repeat. A tone of voice, a choice you make when you are tired. Suddenly, you hear your own words, and they sound like someone else's, someone you promised you would not become. Zeus feels that. He hides it, because Olympus is a place where weakness is hunted with smiles. Athena's lips part slightly. The first sound she makes is not a cry this time. It is a slow breath. Then she speaks, softly, as if she is addressing a single listener, not a hall of immortals. Father, just one word. It lands heavier than any thunder. Athena turns toward Hephaestus, who still holds the axe. His knuckles are pale where he grips it. She studies him, and for a moment her expression softens. Your hand was steady, she says. It is recognition, the way a skilled craftsperson recognizes another skilled craftsperson. Hephaestus exhales as if he has been holding his breath since the prophecy was spoken. and the axe lowers. Athena walks a few paces, slow enough that you can imagine each footfall. Bronze greaves touch marble. The sound is clean. Her cloak shifts, a small rasp like dry leaves. Zeus watches her with the hunger of a ruler who has found a new instrument. He is already thinking of wars with purpose, of plans that tighten like nets. And he is thinking, always, of what must be prevented. That second child, the son, inside the swallowed mother. The prophecy's knife, still waiting to be drawn. Zeus smiles wider than he feels. Athena notices. Of course, she notices. Yet she does not challenge him. Not now. A wise strategist learns the terrain before she makes demands. When the hall begins to empty, Zeus lingers. He looks at Athena again. "You are mine," he says, and his voice tries to make it a law. Athena's answer is gentle. "I am," she says, "and I am not." It does not argue. It simply holds two truths at once, the way real wisdom often does. And somewhere, far below the marble, in the deep invisible place where swallowed things continue to exist, Metis listens. That thought makes me uneasy in the quietest way, because it suggests that nothing is ever fully consumed. Not wisdom, not fear, not the consequences of what you do to avoid being hurt. The torches burn lower. Ash settles in their trays. Night presses closer, soft and endless, as if the world is trying to cover everything with darkness so it can sleep. But prophecy does not sleep. It just waits, breathing slowly, like a creature under a blanket. Before Zeus turns away, Athena lifts her hand and rests her fingertips against his brow, right at the place where the seam had opened. Her touch is cool, not cold like death, cool like water kept in shade. Zeus closes his eyes for a second, involuntarily, and for that heartbeat he looks less like a king and more like someone exhausted by his own dread. She leans close, close enough that her helmet's edge almost brushes his hair, and she murmurs something only he can hear. The others would call it a blessing. It feels more like an agreement made in fog. Zeus opens his eyes again, and the mask returns. Smooth, bright, unquestionable. Athena stays where she is as the last footsteps fade, listening to Olympus settle, listening for the tiniest tremors in the stone, as if the mountain itself is thinking. And in that listening, she seems already older than the palace that surrounds her. For a while, time moves strangely in myths. One moment, Athena is standing in Olympus, with fresh bronze on her shoulders, and the next, she is walking among mortals who will never know the taste of ambrosia, only the taste of dust and bread and fear. That is how the stories feel when you tell them by firelight, like beads sliding on a string. Click, click, and suddenly, the scene is different. Picture Attica, not the marble Athens you imagine from postcards. Not yet. This is older, rougher, a land of sun-baked rock and stubborn soil, where the hills are pale and sharp, and the wind smells of salt from the nearby sea. At night, the sky opens wide and cold, and the stars look close enough to touch, as if the gods have pinned them there just to watch what people will do. At the center of this place rises a rocky outcrop, the Acropolis. It is not crowned with temples yet. It is simply stone, steep on three sides, with paths that twist upward like old scars. Goats pick their way along the edges. Thorn bushes cling to cracks. A few small springs hide on the slopes, thin and precious. In the early mornings, you can see mist collect in the hollows, and when the sun climbs, that mist burns away like breath. People live here because they need to survive. They build low walls from whatever rock they can lift. They store grain in clay jars. They keep fires small at night so enemies won't see the glow from far away. Their lives are measured in harvests and sicknesses and raids. When you live like that, you don't have the luxury of loving beauty for its own sake. Beauty is what keeps you alive. A sharp tool, a safe roof, a strong alliance. And yet, even here, The gods want ownership. Poseidon wants the city because he sees the sea as a road, and he wants roads that lead back to him. Athena wants the city because she sees minds that could be trained, hands that could be taught, a place that could become more than survival. So they come, not in secret, not as whispers. This is a formal contest, arranged the way divine politics are always arranged, with rules that sound civilized and threats that sit under every rule like knives. The people gather, their feet scuff the dusty stone, their mouths taste the dry air. Some carry offerings, small and careful, a handful of barley, a little oil, a ribbon. Others come with nothing but anxiety. They look up at the sky too often. They look at one another as if wondering who will be blamed if the gods are angered. At the front stands their king, Cecrops, half man, half serpent, in the old telling. The human part of him wears a crown of simple metal. The serpent part coils on the rock, patient, watchful, as if the earth itself has risen to judge the gods. I always find Cecrops unsettling, in a quiet way. He is a reminder that cities are built on older things, older worship, older fears. He belongs to the ground more than to the sky. Poseidon arrives first. You feel him before you see him. The air thickens, salty, damp. The wind changes direction. Far off, gulls cry as if something massive has moved beneath the waves. He steps onto the high point of the rock and raises his trident. It is enormous, three-pronged, dark with sea depths. When the sun hits it, the metal does not gleam like bronze. It glows like wet stone, like something dragged up from a trench. Poseidon's eyes sweep over the crowd. There is no warmth there. There is appetite. He wants to be chosen. He wants to be obeyed. He brings the trident down. The impact is violent enough that the people stagger. Dust leaps into the air. A crack races through the limestone like lightning frozen into stone. And from that crack, water bursts. Clear at first, sparkling. A miracle. People gasp. Mouths open. Hands reach forward instinctively, as if thirst has been living in their bones for years, and now, finally, there is relief. The spring pools quickly, bubbling, alive. It looks like salvation. For a few breaths, hope rises. You can almost feel it, that fragile human hope, thin as glass. Then someone cups the water in their hands and tastes it. Their face twists. Salt. The water is brackish, sharp on the tongue, carrying the smell of tide and rotting seaweed. It does not soothe thirst. It makes thirst worse. It is a gift that looks generous until you put it in your mouth. The crowd murmurs. Not loudly. They are afraid of insulting a god, but you can hear disappointment hiding inside their reverence. Poseidon watches them and smiles anyway, because this gift is not really for drinking. It is a claim, a promise, a threat. Choose me, and you will belong to the sea. You will send ships out, and some will return heavy, with foreign wealth. Some will return with bodies. Some will not return at all. Your sons will learn to swim before they learn to read. Your daughters will learn to wait at shorelines with their hands clasped, pretending they are praying when they are really bargaining. That is Poseidon's world. Beautiful, dangerous, unstable. A world where storms can erase whole lives in a single night. Now Athena steps forward. Her presence is different. The air does not thicken. It clears. The wind feels cooler, drier, more like evening than noon. There is a hush, not the hush of fear, but the hush you hear when someone is about to speak a truth you didn't know you needed. She carries her spear, not raised like a threat, but angled like a tool, ready for work. Her helmet catches sunlight, yet her eyes keep the color of clouded stone. She looks at the people, not like prey, not like possessions, like a teacher looking at students she hasn't met yet, already imagining what they could become. Athena touches the rock with her spear. Not a smash, not a dramatic blow, a precise strike, a clean point pressed into the right place, as if she knows the hidden pathways inside the stone. There is a sound like a seed cracking open. Then something pushes upward, a shoot, pale at first, trembling. It rises fast, but not in an ugly rush. It grows the way life grows in time lapse, unfolding with a quiet confidence. Roots spread into crevices, gripping. The trunk thickens. Bark forms, gnarled, textured, a skin that looks ancient even as it is being born. Branches extend, graceful, making a shape that feels balanced, deliberate. Leaves appear, silver green, catching light and turning it into shimmer. The air fills with a faint, clean scent, bitter and fresh. An olive tree, fully grown, heavy with fruit. Olives hang in clusters, dark and glossy. Some are green, some purple-black, as if the tree is already offering every stage of ripeness. The people stare. They have seen plants. They have never seen a plant arrive like this, complete, like an answer. And the thing is, the gift makes sense. Even before anyone speaks, you can feel it. The olive tree offers food, oil, light for lamps, medicine, wood, trade, a kind of wealth that does not vanish with a single storm. It offers patience. A tree that lives long asks you to think long. Cecrops glides closer, his serpent coils sliding over stone with a sound like sand being poured. He studies the tree, then the spring, then the faces of his people. The decision is not simple. I know the stories often make it seem quick. Athena's gift is better, so she wins. But people aren't that clean inside. Choices are messy. Pride, fear, hunger, and the desire for excitement all pull in different directions. Some men look at Poseidon's spring and see ships, sea power, raids that make them rich fast. They imagine themselves as captains, as conquerors, as names that will be sung. Others look at Athena's tree and see steadiness. They imagine their children eating through winter. They imagine lamps burning without smoke choking their eyes. They imagine jars of oil traded for bronze, for cloth, for grain. They imagine peace not as a dream, but as a plan. Voices rise. Debates begin. Not polite debates, real ones. The kind that happen when survival is on the table. The kind that turn neighbors into enemies with a few bitter sentences. Cecrops listens. He lets everyone speak, and the sun moves while they argue. Shadows shift on the rock. Sweat dries on foreheads. Throats go hoarse. An insect buzzes near the olives and is slapped away. Athena waits. Poseidon waits too, but his waiting is impatient. The sea does not like to be kept waiting. The sea punishes delays. Finally, the choice is made. Athena is chosen. The people step toward the tree, not as worshippers only, but as caretakers. You can almost see the future in that step. Groves, presses, trade routes, a city that becomes known for thought as much as for force. Poseidon's face hardens. He does not rage like a mortal. His anger is colder, older. It feels like the moment before a storm, when the air goes still and every animal knows something is coming. He lifts his trident again, not to strike the rock this time, but to mark the sky. There are versions where he floods the land, versions where he sends drought, versions where his resentment becomes a curse that lingers in the soil and in the sea wind. So the city will always struggle a little, always pay a little price for choosing another patron. I believe all those versions, in a way, because resentment is like that. Even among gods, it finds a path. The salt spring remains. It bubbles on the Acropolis, like a reminder that a rejected power does not disappear. It stays. It waits. It keeps its bitterness. Athena, meanwhile, does not gloat. She touches the olive leaves, and the tree rustles softly. She looks at Cecrops, and then at the people. and her gaze carries an unspoken bargain. I will give you gifts. You will give me devotion. You will build for me. You will shape yourselves into something worthy of my name. The first night after the contest, the hill is quieter. People go home. Fires are lit. The smell of oil begins to mingle with the smell of smoke. Somewhere a child asks what the tree means. Somewhere an old woman whispers that gods never give without taking. And above the hill, the stars watch. Athena stands with her spear planted beside the young tree, and the leaves gleam faintly in starlight, like small pieces of moon. If you listen, you can hear the sea in the distance, not close, but present. A low, endless sound, a reminder, even when you choose wisdom, you still live in a world where the sea can rise. In the days that follow, the tree becomes a center point, not just of worship, but of routine. People come at dawn with hands rough from lifting stone. They circle the trunk slowly, as if measuring it with their footsteps, palms pressed to bark, feeling the ridges, the tiny, cool pockets where night still lingers. Some leave ribbons. Some leave little clay owls with wide, staring eyes. And then, because humans are humans, the darker parts creep in. A goat is brought up the hill. Its hooves click on rock. It resists with a stubborn pull, the way an animal knows a place is wrong. The rope rubs its neck. Its breath comes out fast. Little clouds in the cool morning air. The priest's knife is small and sharp. The blade flashes once, and the goat's bleat cuts the air, then falls into a wet silence. Blood runs into a shallow groove carved in stone. The red looks almost black in shadow. The smoke of burning fat rises and clings to your hair, to your clothes, to your throat. You carry the smell home. It follows you into sleep. Cecrops orders a shrine, simple limestone blocks stacked with care, a place to leave offerings, a place to gather when rumors of raiders spread, when a child is born sick and the mother wants someone, anyone, to blame. And deep inside the hill, the old serpent spirit stirs. There is a chamber where the stone stays cool even in summer, a hollow where a sacred snake is said to live, guardian of the rock, older than Athena's claim, older than Poseidon's. It eats honey cakes left on flat stones. When it eats eagerly, people sigh with relief. When it refuses, whispers spread like smoke. Sometimes, on certain nights, the sea wind rises suddenly and slams against the hill with salty violence. Lamps flicker. Dogs whine. In the distance, waves crash harder than they should. People say Poseidon is remembering. Athena hears the wind too. She does not flinch. She stands by her tree, cloak stirring, and the olives sway as if answering her. She does not promise the city an easy life. She promises something stranger, a life that must be built. And when you think about it, that might be the more frightening gift. Soon the first olives are crushed between stones. The paste is bitter, green, alive. Oil seeps out in thin lines and is caught in a bowl like liquid dusk. That night, a lamp burns with that oil, and the flame is steadier than pine resin, cleaner than tallow. The room feels safer, and somehow that makes the shadows look deeper, as if the darkness has learned to wait patiently. Tonight, let the fire settle low. Imagine the oil lamp in a small room on the hill, the kind of lamp that smokes a little at the rim, leaving a soft, gray kiss of soot on the clay. The flame leans when the wind sneaks under the door, then straightens again, faithful. Outside, the olive leaves whisper against one another, a dry, silvery sound. Inside, people breathe. Some of them sleep, some of them do not. Athena watches all of it, not like a jealous guardian who demands constant praise, more like the steady attention of someone who understands that a city is a living thing made of fragile parts. A city is bread and water. It is arguments at noon and apologies at dusk. It is children running barefoot over hot stone. It is old men sitting with their backs against walls, listening for trouble. And trouble always comes. It starts as a rumor that rides in on dusty sandals. A trader arrives from the coast with salt crusted on his beard. He drops his bundle in the market and speaks too loudly because his fear needs to escape through his mouth. "There is a woman in Sparta," he says. "Helen, a face bright enough to make kings forget they are mortal. She has been taken, not politely, not with proper gifts, taken like an object in the night, taken along with treasure that was not meant to leave its house." People in Athens listen and pretend it is far away. It is always far away at first. Then the names begin to stack up like stones in a wall. Menelaus, Agamemnon, oaths spoken over wine, ships being pulled down to water, bronze hammered into shape, spearheads cooled in troughs with a hiss that sounds like a snake warning you back. Athena hears these names too. Her gray eyes narrow, not with petty interest, but with that particular focus she has when she sees a pattern. Hospitality broken, oaths mocked, a city sheltering the thief because he is the prince's favorite, the world tilting toward chaos again, the way it always does. When desire runs ahead of judgment, she does not like chaos. Not because she is gentle, she can be merciless. She dislikes chaos the way a builder dislikes a loose stone in a foundation. Chaos spreads. It ruins everything it touches. It makes honest work meaningless. So she chooses a side, not with loud speeches. She chooses with attention, with small acts, with guidance that feels like a thought you believe is your own. The first time Odysseus feels her, he is standing on a shoreline. The sand is cold under his feet, still damp from night. His men are hauling ropes, straining, grunting, their shoulders shining with sweat even in the early chill. The hull of a ship creaks as it shifts, wood complaining in a deep voice. Odysseus watches the horizon. The sea looks calm, but he knows what calm can hide. He has that kind of mind. It sees the smooth surface and imagines the undertow. You know that feeling, don't you? When everyone around you is excited, drunk on purpose, and you are the one who feels the weight of consequences. You smile because you must, but inside you are already counting the ways things can go wrong. That is Odysseus. Athena likes him immediately. She does not appear in full armor at his side. She does not need to. She slips into his thoughts like a cool thread through warm cloth. A suggestion: watch the men who speak too loudly. A reminder: measure your supplies twice. A quiet warning: pride is a hole in the boat, even before you set sail. When the Greek ships finally reach Troy, the beach becomes a long scar of campfires and dragged hulls. Salt air mixes with smoke. The sand is churned to mud by thousands of feet. Horses snort and stamp, their breath white in dawn, cold. Men sharpen blades on wet stones, the rasp steady and hypnotic. The walls of Troy loom beyond the plain, high, old, built with that divine precision that makes stone fit stone without mortar. The gates look like the mouth of a beast that has never been forced open. Athena studies those walls and feels something like irritation, not because she doubts the Greeks, but because she knows brute force will bleed itself dry against such defenses. Ares would charge. He would laugh in the spray of blood. Athena does not laugh. She plans. She moves among the Greek leaders like a whisper. She gives Agamemnon the patience to wait when he wants to boast. She gives Nestor a clearer memory, so his advice lands with weight. She watches Achilles closely, the bright blade of him, so sharp he could cut his own side open without noticing. Achilles is a fire. He is beautiful in the way fire is beautiful, and just as hungry. When he storms across the field, the grass flattens under his feet. Dust rises. His armor catches sunlight and throws it back like a glare. Men on both sides feel their throats tighten when they see him coming. Athena respects power. She does not trust it. She knows Achilles' pride is a weak seam. She stands near that seam like a careful hand near a crack in clay, ready to stop it from spreading. When Agamemnon insults Achilles, the camp turns sour. The air seems thicker, heavier, with unspoken curses. Achilles' hands tremble as he grips the hilt of his sword. His knuckles whiten. His breath is loud in his own ears, a roar like surf. He steps forward, ready to kill his own commander. Athena moves, not with a shout, with a sudden stillness. She appears behind Achilles like the shadow of a thought, and her hand grips his hair, firm, invisible to everyone else. Achilles freezes, his chest heaves, his eyes burn. Not now. Her voice slides into him, quiet and iron. Not like this. Achilles lowers his blade, not because he is gentle, but because even rage can be guided when it meets something colder. That is Athena's gift. Control. Days fold into months. Months stretch into years. 10 years, they say, and I believe it, because siege time is not measured the way ordinary time is. It is measured by rot, by boredom, by sudden bursts of terror. By the way, a man's beard grows and grays while he waits. In the Greek camp, sleep is never deep. Even when bodies collapse from exhaustion, the mind stays half awake, listening for Trojan sorties, listening for the crunch of steps that do not belong. Athena walks that thin line between waking and dreaming. Sometimes she comes to Diomedes. He is young, but he carries discipline in his bones. When he straps on his greaves, he tightens the leather with care. When he checks his spear, he runs his fingers along the shaft and feels every nick. His eyes do not drift. They fix, they hold. Athena likes that too. One morning, the light is pale and flat, as if the sun is tired. Mist hangs over the plain in thin sheets, making the Trojan walls look farther away, almost unreal. The air smells of damp earth and old sweat. Diomedes kneels, tying his sandal straps, and Athena steps close. She touches his eyes. The world changes. The mist that usually hides gods from mortal sight peels away. The field sharpens. The air becomes clear enough to cut. Diomedes blinks and sees, for the first time, not just men and horses, but the tall, bright presences moving among them. Divine shapes, divine intentions. It is a dangerous gift. It is also a weapon. Later that day, Aphrodite rushes onto the field, soft and shining, panicked for her son. She is not meant for war. Her feet barely touch the ground. Her hair floats as if underwater. She reaches for Aeneas, trying to lift him away from spear points. Diomedes sees her. His stomach flips. His mind screams that a mortal should not strike a goddess. His hand still moves, because Athena's guidance steadies it, because discipline can override fear when it is trained well. He thrusts. The spear catches Aphrodite's hand. Not a mortal wound, nothing like that, but enough. A sharp flash of divine pain. She cries out, a high sound that feels wrong in a battlefield, like a harp string snapped. Blood, bright and thin, falls from her wound. Not red, like human blood. Something lighter, almost golden, like diluted sunlight. Aphrodite recoils, clutching her hand, her face twisted in shocked indignation. She flees, and the air around her shimmers as she goes. Diomedes breathes hard. His heart bangs in his chest. He looks down at his spear as if it has acted on its own. He feels sick and triumphant at once. Athena says nothing. She only watches, calm. Then Ares arrives, not as a whisper, as a storm. The air darkens. The ground seems to vibrate under the weight of his presence. His armor clatters like 100 shields struck at once. His eyes are wild, bright, with the joy of violence. He drives the Trojans forward with a roar, and men begin to die faster, not because tactics have changed, but because fear has been poured into the field like oil. Greek lines bend. A spear slips in a man's hand because his palm is slick with sweat. A shield angle is wrong by a breath, and a blade slides under it. Someone falls. Someone screams. Someone gurgles. The sounds pile up until the whole plain feels like a mouth full of broken teeth. Athena steps to Diomedes again. She does not give him fury. She gives him aim. "Strike there," she murmurs, and her finger, invisible, points to the seam in Ares's armor. Diomedes' arm lifts, his muscles tense. The spear flies, spinning end over end, cutting through air that seems to resist it. It hits. Ares bellows. The sound is enormous, a divine howl that rolls across the field and slams into the Trojan walls and echoes back. Birds burst from distant trees. Men on both sides flinch as if struck. Ares stumbles, clutching his wound, disbelief burning in his face. A god wounded by a mortal. He looks around for someone to blame, for someone to punish, and his gaze finds Athena. She stands still, her expression unreadable. Ares retreats, not because he is merciful, because pain has reminded him, for a moment, that strategy can humiliate even raw power. The field changes after that. Greek morale lifts like a heavy lid being raised. Trojan confidence cracks. They still fight. They still kill. The war does not end because a god was pricked, but something shifts. A thought spreads through the Greek camp, quiet, contagious. Maybe we can win. At night, Odysseus sits by a small fire. The wood pops softly. Sparks rise and vanish. His hands are stained with smoke and oil. He watches the flames and thinks. Athena sits beside him, unseen, like the weight of a cloak over his shoulders. He speaks in a low voice, as if confessing to the dark. "Walls," he says. "Walls don't fall for bravery. They fall for mistakes." Athena's silence is approval. In the Trojan city, inside those divine walls, people also sleep lightly now. Children wake to distant cries. Women keep their hands on their sons' heads a little longer, as if touch can hold them in place. Hector walks the ramparts and feels the weight of every stone. He looks down at the Greek fires and thinks of the years bleeding away. He is brave. He is tired. He is human. Athena watches him too, and something in her tightens. Not pity exactly, but recognition. A good opponent deserves respect. A good opponent makes victory meaningful. The war drags on. Bodies are burned. The smell of charred hair drifts over camp. Ash settles on tents. Men eat without tasting. They laugh sometimes, thin laughter, and then stop abruptly, as if the sound has embarrassed them. Athena remains. She is the steady hand on the shoulder, the quiet thought that says wait, the sharp insight that says now. She is not love. She is not comfort. She is the cold clarity that turns darkness into a map. And in that clarity, the next idea begins to form. Slow at first, then sharper, like a blade being honed. Not a charge, not a duel, a deception. A wooden shape that will carry sleep inside it, like a nightmare wrapped in prayer. Odysseus stares into the fire until his eyes sting, and he smiles, faintly, as if he has heard Athena's voice without hearing it. Somewhere in the dark, an owl calls once, and then again, and the sound lands on the camp like a small, patient omen. He rolls a pebble between his fingers, feeling the grit, the tiny edges, the way it warms as his skin holds it. Around him, the camp settles into that uneasy half-silence, distant coughing, a pot lid clinking, a horse shifting its weight and snorting into the dark. The sea keeps breathing on the shore, in and out, and every breath sounds like a question nobody wants to answer. Odysseus finally lies back, but his eyes stay open, reflecting the ember-red glow. His blanket smells of wool and old salt. Somewhere, a man mutters in his sleep, a broken prayer to any god who will listen. Odysseus listens too, to the soft grind of waves, to the faint creak of masts, to his own pulse tapping against his throat. Tonight, Athena sets the outline of a horse in his mind, just a shadow of timber and prayer, and he lets it settle, quietly, for now. The next days feel different in the Greek camp. Not brighter, not easier, just angled, like a path that has finally been marked, even if it leads through thorns. Hippias, the craftsman, wakes with sawdust in his beard and a strange steadiness in his hands. He has built boats and doors and simple furniture. He knows wood the way a farmer knows soil. Yet this new project is not simple. It is a lie that must look like devotion. Athena comes to him in the quiet hours, when the camp is still gray with pre-dawn and the air tastes of cold ash. She does not flatter him. She does not call him chosen. She places images in his mind, curved ribs like the inside of a ship, joints hidden where no one will think to look, seams that will swallow noise. You can almost hear it, can't you? The first scrape of a blade on timber, the soft, patient rasp, the smell of fresh-cut wood rising like clean breath, so different from the stench of battle. For a moment, the camp feels like a workshop, not a graveyard. Men begin to cut trees. The grove is not sacred to them. It is simply useful. Axes bite into trunks. Each strike has a rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. Then the shiver of leaves as the tree realizes it is dying. When it finally falls, the crash is heavy, final, like a door slamming in a temple. They drag the logs back over sand. Ropes creak, feet slip, shoulders strain. Sweat runs down spines even in winter air. The work is honest work, and that honesty is part of the deception. If the Greeks build it with care, it will look like an offering, not a trap. Hippias measures. He marks lines with charcoal. He checks angles. He licks his finger and holds it up to feel the wind, because even the way the horse will stand, even the way the sun will strike its flank, matters. A lie is fragile. A lie must be supported. At night, the shape rises. First the ribs, then the skin of planks, bent and nailed, each nail driven with a dull, controlled hammering that carries through the camp like a heartbeat. Inside, it is hollow. Inside, it smells of resin and raw wood. Inside, darkness gathers. Odysseus chooses the men who will hide there, not the loud ones, not the ones who brag about killing. He chooses the ones who can hold their breath when it matters, the ones who can sit still with an itch and not scratch, the ones who can obey when fear is chewing at their bones. They practice. They climb into the belly of the horse and crouch. Their knees press into their chests. Their armor is wrapped in cloth to keep it from clinking. Sweat beads on their foreheads in the stale air. They learn the taste of wood dust, the way it sticks to the tongue. They learn to breathe in shallow sips. Athena watches, and I always find it strange how calm she is during preparations like this. It is not cruelty for its own sake. It is the calm of a surgeon. A cut must be made. It must be clean. Hesitation only makes it worse. The horse is finished. It stands on the beach like a sleeping beast carved from prayer. Its flanks are smooth. Its head is lifted. Its eye is a dark knot in the wood that seems to stare back at anyone who looks too long. The Greeks do the next part. They disappear. They burn their tents. Smoke rises, thick and black, curling into the sky. The smell is bitter. Canvas snaps in flame. Leather shrinks and pops. The camp that has existed for a decade becomes a field of embers in a single afternoon. Ships slide into the water at night, silent as possible. Oars dip. The sea accepts them without a splash loud enough to betray. The fleet hides behind an island, close enough to return, far enough to seem gone. On the beach, they leave the horse, and they leave Sinon. Sinon's role is the softest blade in the plan. He is the story. He is the trembling voice that turns suspicion into pride. In the morning, the Trojans see the empty shore. The Greek fires are gone. The ships are gone. Only ashes remain. scattered like gray snow. The wind carries the faint smell of burned rope. At first, there is silence on the walls. Men lean over the battlements and squint as if the sea is playing a trick. Then a shout, then another, the sound of gates opening, rusty and heavy, like a throat clearing after years of holding its breath. Trojan soldiers pour out. They step carefully at first, as if the ground might still bite. Their sandals press into ash. Their spears are held ready. Their eyes flick to every shadow. They approach the horse. It dwarfs them. It is too large to ignore. It is too strange to understand quickly. Some men laugh. The laugh is sharp, relieved, almost ugly with gratitude. Some men touch the wood with cautious fingers, feeling the smoothness, the warmth from the sun already gathering on it. Someone spits, just to prove they are not afraid. In the city, word spreads faster than feet can carry it. Women come to the walls. Old men limp up the slopes. Children wriggle through adults' legs to see. A decade of fear needs an ending, even a false one. Sinon is dragged forward. His wrists are bound. His hair is tangled with sand. His face is pale. His eyes wide and wet. He looks like a man already punished by the gods. When he speaks, his voice shakes, and that shaking makes him believable. He tells them the Greeks are leaving. He says, because Athena is angry. He tells them the horse is an offering to her, meant to calm her wrath. He tells them it is so large because the Greeks feared the Trojans might steal it and claim the goddess's favor for themselves. You can hear the trap closing, can't you? Not with chains, with logic that feels flattering. The Trojans debate. Some want to burn it. Fire is a simple answer. Fire has always worked on wood. They bring torches close, and the pitch on the horse's seams glistens. The flames lick, hungry. Odysseus and the hidden men freeze inside. The heat seeps through the planks. Sweat breaks out. Breaths become shallow and fast. A man's hand trembles. Another man presses his palm against his own mouth, not to pray, but to keep from making noise. Then the fire is pulled away. Someone says it would be sacrilege. Someone says it would insult Athena. Someone says the horse is proof of victory, and victory deserves a trophy. And there is Laocoon, a priest, a man with salt on his skin from years near the sea. He looks at the horse and feels the wrongness in it, the way you can feel a storm before it arrives because the air changes pressure. He speaks. His voice carries across the plain. He warns them. He says in rough words, not polished, not gentle, do not trust gifts from enemies. He points at the horse and calls it a trick. People listen. Some nod. Some look away, embarrassed by doubt, because doubt ruins celebration. Laocoon takes his spear and hurls it. The spear strikes the horse's flank with a solid thud and bites into the wood. Inside, the hidden men feel the impact like a punch. The horse trembles. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath. If anyone had been perfectly quiet, if no one's armor had shifted, if no muscle had cramped and forced a gasp, but silence holds. Laocoon's warning hangs in the air. Then the sea answers. From the water, far out at first, two shapes rise. Serpents, long, pale, glistening, their bodies rolling over the surface like ropes alive. The sea around them foams. Their heads lift, and their eyes are flat, indifferent. They move with terrifying calm. They slide onto the shore and coil through the sand, leaving wet trails that shine like spilled oil. People scream. The sound is raw, immediate. Soldiers lift spears, but their arms hesitate because something ancient in them recognizes divinity. The serpents reach Laocoon. They wrap him, first around the waist, crushing breath out of him, then around his arms, pinning him. He fights, muscles straining, face turning red, then purple. His mouth opens in a sound that is half curse, half prayer. His sons run to him. That is the darkest part for me, truly. Not the killing, The impulse, the human impulse. They run because they love him. They run because they cannot imagine standing still. The serpents take them too. Bodies twist. Sand sprays. A boy's heel digs a furrow as he tries to pull away. His fingers scrabble at scales that are slick and unstoppable. Then the struggle slows. Breath becomes a thin, failing whistle. Eyes bulge. The terrible quiet after. The serpents release the dead and slide away toward the temple, toward the city, as if the gods themselves have delivered a verdict. Laocoon was wrong, or at least, that is what the Trojans choose to believe, because believing that is easier than facing the other possibility. The horse is pulled to the gates. Ropes are thrown over its body. Men lean back and haul. Wheels are fitted under it. The wood groans. The road up to Troy is narrow, and the horse bumps and jolts, its hooves scraping stone. Inside, the Greeks endure. The smell of sweat thickens. A man's calf cramps, and he bites down on his own sleeve until his teeth ache. Another man's breath wheezes, and he forces it smaller, smaller, until each inhale feels like stealing. Time stretches. If you have ever tried to stay awake when you are exhausted, you know that strange haze where thoughts drift like smoke. Imagine that, but trapped, crouched, knees locked, listening to enemy voices outside. So close you can hear laughter, can hear a child squeal, can hear the clink of jewelry on a woman's wrist. The horse crosses the threshold. The gate's shadow falls over it, cool and sudden, like water poured on hot stone. The city air smells different than the beach. Less salt, more cooking oil, more human life packed into narrow streets. Trojans cheer. They slap the horse. They smear it with garlands. They touch it as if touch can turn it holy. The priesthood blesses it. Wine is poured at its feet, dark and sweet, soaking into dust. Night comes. The city celebrates. Fires burn. Meat roasts. Songs rise. People who have not slept properly in 10 years drink until their legs forget how to stand. Doors are left unbarred. Watches are careless. Victory makes people soft. Inside the horse, the Greeks listen. They hear the celebration fade, not all at once, but in layers. Laughter becomes scattered. Footsteps thin out. A dog barks once, then settles. The last drunk song slurs into silence. Then the city holds its breath. Odysseus feels Athena, not as warmth, as clarity. A tiny shift in the air, a permission. He waits until the moon has climbed high enough to throw pale light through the cracks in the wood. He waits until he can hear only the distant crackle of dying fires and the occasional snore from a guard slumped against a wall. Then he moves. A hidden panel opens with a soft scrape. The first man slides out, careful, slow, like a snake leaving its skin. Feet touch stone, knees straighten painfully. One by one, they emerge. They do not speak. They do not look at one another for reassurance. They know this moment is a knife edge. One mistake, one cough, one dropped buckle, and they will be slaughtered in the streets. They reach the gates. They kill the guards quietly. A hand over a mouth, a blade under ribs, warm blood on fingers. Bodies ease down so they do not fall with a thud. The bolts are drawn back. The gates open. Outside, the Greek fleet returns, oars biting the water, sails dark, the sea hiding them until the last possible moment. They pour into the city like a wave that has been held back too long. Troy wakes to death. Houses burn. Smoke chokes the streets. The sound of screaming is everywhere, ricocheting off stone. Men run half-dressed, eyes wild. Children cry. Dogs howl and dart between legs. Athena does not revel. She watches, and this is where her darkness shows itself most clearly. She can support order. She can also support destruction when she believes it restores the proper balance. The city that sheltered the Oathbreaker is punished. The cost is paid in blood. It is not pretty. It is not heroic. It is a long night of doors being kicked in, of bronze flashing in torchlight, of people begging to be spared and being ignored because war has a momentum that does not care about pleading. By dawn, the sun rises through smoke. Ash floats like tiny black moths. Roofs collapse with tired groans. The stones of Troy, so proud, are stained, and somewhere in the ruin, the wooden horse stands empty now, its belly cooled, its lie completed. Its shadow stretches across the broken street. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it creak in the morning wind, the sound of wood settling after strain, a quiet sigh, as if even the deception is finally ready to sleep. And you, listening here by the fire, can let that night drift farther away now. Feel your shoulders sink. Let the breath slow. The story has done its work. The embers dim. The city fades. Sleep can claim you, just as gently as ash. In the morning after Troy falls, the light is the wrong color. It is pale, but not clean. It pushes through smoke and hangs in it, as if the sun itself is coughing. Ash drifts down in slow spirals, soft as snow, landing on shoulders, on eyelashes, on the rims of broken cups. The stones that once held songs now hold heat, and when you touch them with the edge of your hand, they feel like fever. Athena stands somewhere above it all, invisible, quiet. I always find it strange how victory smells. People expect it to smell like wine, like laurel, like fresh air after rain. In truth, victory in a sacked city smells like wet soot, like fat burning, like wool scorched at the hem, like blood that has had time to cool. It smells like fear that has nowhere left to go. Greek soldiers move through the streets with torchlight blinking on their armor. Their eyes are bright and empty at once. Some shout, some laugh, some are silent, and the silent ones are often the worst, because they do not need to convince themselves of anything. Doors are forced open. A shoulder rams wood. A latch snaps. A family huddles in a corner where the wall is cold against their backs. A mother presses her palm over her child's mouth, not to hurt them, only to keep them alive for one more breath. You know that feeling, don't you? When your own heart is so loud you think it will betray you. In that moment, even the smallest sound feels like a flare. The soldiers take what they want: bronze bowls, soft cloth, rings that leave pale marks on fingers when they are torn away. Some take people, hands grab wrists, hair is seized like rope. The streets fill with pleading, and pleading turns into screaming, and then into the dull, exhausted quiet that comes when the voice gives up. Athena does not interfere. Not because she cannot, because she has chosen the shape of this ending. And an ending is a blade. If you pull it away mid-cut, the wound becomes jagged. That is how she thinks. Coldly, carefully. She is a goddess of wisdom, and wisdom is not always kind. Still, there are moments when even Athena's discipline has to clench tighter. At the temple of Apollo, Cassandra clings to stone. She is a priestess. She is cursed. She has always spoken truth and never been believed. Her mouth tastes of smoke and dust. Her hands, scraped raw, clutch the base of the statue. Her fingers slide over carved marble that is slick with oil from countless offerings, slick with the touch of generations. She has nowhere else to go. Ajax, the lesser one, the fast one, comes like a gust of violence in a narrow hallway. His armor is smeared with soot. His breath is harsh. He looks at Cassandra and sees not a human being, but spoil, a prize that will prove his power. She begs, not elegantly, not in poetry. Her voice cracks. She says the name of the god. She says the name of the goddess. She presses her forehead to stone so hard it aches. Ajax drags her away. The sound is small, and that is what haunts me. Her nails scraping, the faint knock of her heel against the temple step, a little gasp that turns into a swallowed cry because shock has closed her throat. The statue does not move. The temple does not collapse. The gods do not strike him dead on the spot. But Athena feels it. You can imagine her face, can't you? That stillness behind gray eyes. That slight tightening at the corner of the mouth that is not rage like Ares, not heat like Hera, but a silent decision being carved into divine stone. Sacrilege is a crack in order. She cannot allow cracks to spread. Later, when the loot is piled high and the captives are bound, the Greek leaders hear the story. Some shrug, some look away. Some say, softly, "We should not have done that." A little too late. Athena records it anyway. Troy's survivors are gathered like broken branches. Andromache, with ash in her hair. Hecuba, with eyes that have emptied themselves of tears. Children pulled away from mothers. Men tied and marched. The ships are loaded. As they push off, the sea looks calm, almost gentle. It is a lie. The sea is always listening. The Greek fleet spreads out like dark leaves on water. Oars dip. Sails catch wind. The smell of smoke fades behind them, replaced by salt and tar, and the familiar stink of unwashed bodies, packed too close. For a moment, you could almost believe it is over. Then the wind changes. It does not announce itself with thunder. It begins as a strange pressure in the ears, a hush, as if the world is inhaling. The sails flutter. Men glance up. The horizon looks bruised. Athena has spoken. Poseidon hears her, and he is not pleased. This is how it always is with gods. Alliances are not friendships. They are bargains, and bargains leave bruises when broken. Poseidon has his own anger, his own grudges. Athena's victory at Troy has left him with salt in his mouth, and he does not like the taste. So the sea rises. Waves build like shoulders lifting. The ships begin to rock. Water slaps the hulls with sudden force. The wood groans. The same complaint as the Trojan horse once made. But now it is the complaint of something that knows it may split. Men shout orders. Ropes are hauled. Sails are reefed. Hands slip because everything is wet. Cold water lashes faces. The air fills with spray that tastes like metal. Lightning forks in the distance, thin and white. Thunder rolls, deep and slow, like a drum in a cave. Some ships disappear, not dramatically. They are simply there, and then a wave rises taller than a temple roof, and then they are not there anymore. A mast snaps like a bone. A scream cuts off. The sea closes its mouth. Odysseus watches the storm and understands, with that sharp clarity that always comes to him in the worst moments, that the war has ended, but the punishment has not. Athena does not punish everyone equally. She is precise. She is accounting. Ajax, the lesser one, tries to sail through the storm with arrogance still clinging to him like smoke. He boasts that even the gods cannot take him. You can almost hear the foolishness in his voice, that brittle confidence that comes from surviving too much. A wave lifts his ship and throws it against rock. The crash is brutal. Wood splinters. Men tumble. Salt water pours into mouths, noses, eyes. Ajax clings to a jagged stone, coughing, spitting, swearing. He shouts that he has escaped. Poseidon rises near him, dark as the deep. The sea god's trident gleams. The look on his face is not fury, not even pleasure. It is the expression of a force correcting a mistake. The trident strikes. The rock splits. Ajax falls back into the sea, and the sea accepts him without mercy. His armor drags him down. His hands claw at nothing. Bubbles rise, small and bright, then vanish. Athena watches, not smiling, not weeping, only steady. In the wake of the storm, the survivors wash up on strange shores. They build fires with trembling hands. They sit wrapped in wet cloaks, teeth chattering, staring into flames that are too weak against the night wind. They dream of Troy. They dream of the horse. They dream of Cassandra's nails scraping marble. Sleep, after a sack, is not soft. It is heavy, full of images. In Greece, Stories begin to spread even before the ships return. Traders speak of a city that burned for 3 days, of treasure enough to blind, of a goddess who helped win and then turned away. Athena's name is spoken with awe and with caution. At home, women light small lamps in her honor. They place olives on altars. They whisper prayers for wisdom, but also prayers not to catch her attention in the wrong way, because Athena, for all her gifts, is not a mother who forgives everything. She is the mind that remembers, and in that remembering, even victory becomes another kind of shadow, long and cool, stretching behind every bright thing the Greeks think they have earned. So tonight, as we sit beside this quieter fire, let the storm fade. Hear the sea in your imagination, not roaring now, only breathing. Feel the damp salt air soften into something gentler. Let the ash settle. Let the names blur. The work of the goddess is done for this chapter, and your body can rest. Slow breath in, slow breath out. Let the dark become still. Agamemnon reaches home under a sky that looks innocent. The beach is pebbled, the pebbles shining like dull coins in weak sunlight. He steps from the ship, and the plank complains under his boots. A small domestic sound, and for a breath he believes the war is finally behind him. He inhales. The air smells of pine resin and wet rope, familiar, almost tender. But home can hide its teeth. He walks the path to the palace. Each footfall has a plain little noise, sand shifting, leather pressing earth, bronze fittings clicking against his cloak. Servants bow, yet their eyes slide away. Birds, oddly, are quiet. Even the dogs hold their tongues. And he brings Cassandra with him. She is still a captive, still a prophet no one wants. Salt has dried on her skin in pale lines. Her wrists are rubbed raw where the binding has bitten. When she looks at the palace gate, something in her face tightens, as if she recognizes the shape of the next suffering. You know that feeling, don't you? When everything looks ordinary, but your stomach drops anyway, as if your body has already heard the bad news. Cassandra speaks, not with grand poetry, with blunt terror. She says there is blood waiting inside. She says the bath will become a tomb. She says a woman stands ready, smiling with a mouth that is not kind. Agamemnon hears her and turns his mind away. He is tired. He has sacrificed his daughter once to get the wind. He has watched men die for 10 years. He tells himself he deserves warmth now. Water, food, clean linen. Clytemnestra welcomes him. Her voice is smooth. Her hands are gentle on his forearm. Her eyes shine like polished stone. She lays purple cloth beneath his feet. A royal path. A river of dyed fabric that should have been an honor, yet feels like a dare. He hesitates for one heartbeat, then steps onto it anyway, because pride is a habit. Because kings forget how fragile their throats are. The doors close. Steam fills the bathhouse. Lamps flicker. The tub holds warm water that glints like a captive lake. Agamemnon loosens his armor piece by piece, the clink of metal against stone sounding like a life being set down. He sinks into the bath. For a moment his shoulders soften, his eyelids lower. The water laps quietly, almost like the sea, only kinder. Then the net drops over him. A heavy woven cloth, tight as a snare, tangles his arms. He thrashes, and the water slaps the sides. The cloth steals his breath. Clytemnestra lifts an axe, and the blade catches lamplight in a brief, bright line. Once, twice. Steam rises, carrying the iron smell of blood. The bathwater darkens. The palace becomes a hush full of knowing. Cassandra is killed too. Her warning cut short like a candle pinched between fingers. This is how curses keep walking. Years pass. The sun returns. Orestes comes back with dust on his sandals and dread lodged in his chest. He has been told the old rule: blood must pay for blood. He stands before his mother, and for a flicker he remembers being held as a child, the warmth of her lap, the the smell of oil in her hair. Then he kills her. The moment after is not triumph. It is a cold blankness. His hands shake as if they belong to someone else. And then the Furies rise, older than the Olympians, faces wet with rage, voices like insects in a dark room. They chase Orestes across roads and fields and into temples, never letting him rest long enough to become human again. He sleeps in scraps and wakes with a gasp, seeing his mother's blood on the floor of his mind. At last, he runs to Athens, to Athena. She appears without spectacle. She is simply there, steady as a thought that has finally landed. She listens to Apollo, to the Furies, to Orestes. And inside her, a new solution forms, quiet and frightening in its gentleness. A trial, stone benches, citizens gathered under a sky, turning toward evening, dust in the air, and the faint scent of laurel, words spoken where knives used to speak. The vote is close. A tie. Athena breaks it. She chooses mercy, not because mercy is soft, but because mercy can end a chain. The Furies scream, furious at the new order. Athena does not insult them. She offers them a home, honor, a place beneath the city, so their ancient hunger will not have to roam the world forever. Slowly, they change, not into harmless things, into held things, into the kindly ones, the Eumenides. Rage given a boundary, and that is Athena's darker victory. Not a city burning, but a cycle ending. So let the images blur now. Let the sea quiet in your mind. Let the ash of Troy settle. Feel your own breathing become steady again, as if a storm has finally passed over you and moved on. The war ends, and yet Athena does not. That is the strange thing about gods. Cities fall, names turn to dust, but a certain idea keeps walking through centuries, like a person crossing a long room. Sometimes, when I picture it, I see Athena as a calm figure, moving in dim torchlight, her helmet under her arm, her gray eyes reflecting fire, never hurried, never fully at rest. After Troy, stories spread the way smoke spreads. Sailors bring them to harbors. Merchants trade them for bread and gossip. Old men repeat them in courtyards. Mothers whisper them while rubbing sleep into a child's back. In each telling, Athena is sharp and steady, a goddess who can guide a spear and also guide a thought. And in Athens, her city, her presence is not an abstract myth. It is daily texture. You climb the hill of the Acropolis before dawn. The stone under your feet is cool, even in summer, and the air tastes like dust and time crushed by sandals. The city below is still dark, roofs packed close like sleeping animals. Somewhere a dog barks once and then stops, as if it has remembered the hour is sacred. Torches flicker along the path. Their smoke rises in thin threads and curls around the columns. You hear the soft scrape of feet, the hush of many people choosing not to talk loudly. There is a special quiet that comes when a crowd shares a single purpose. Athena is honored with light, lamp oil, golden and thick, poured into small bowls, flames held steady behind glass. In the darkness, that light looks like a promise. The scent of olive oil is warm and faintly sweet, mixed with the smell of incense and the sharp mineral smell of marble. The olive tree is there too, not always the original, not always the same trunk, because time breaks even sacred things. Yet, the tree persists, gnarled bark, silver-green leaves that shimmer when wind passes through them. When you touch a leaf between finger and thumb, it feels tough, waxy, built to survive dryness and sun. It is an ordinary plant and a miracle at once. You know, I have always felt a little comfort in that. Athena does not give a gift that glitters for one day. She gives a gift that asks for patience, for tending, for seasons. The olive needs time. Wisdom needs time. Even sleep needs time. At the Panathenea, the city becomes a river of bodies. The procession begins far away, at the gate, and rolls forward slowly through streets lined with faces. You can hear flutes, thin and reedy, and the soft beat of drums that match the rhythm of walking. You can smell garlands of myrtle and the sharp animal smell of cattle led toward sacrifice, their hooves clicking on stone. There is a peplos, a woven garment, enormous and bright. It has taken months to make. Hands have worked it, thread by thread. Fingers have bled on it. Old women have taught young girls how to keep the tension even, how to count patterns, how to hide mistakes so the cloth looks perfect. The cloth carries stories. Athena's birth, giants falling, spear and shield, order rising from chaos. And as the peplos is lifted, displayed like a sail, the wind catches it and makes it billow, and for a second it looks alive. This is where the darkness hides, because every beautiful city needs labor. Every shining festival needs hands that are not praised. Wool must be washed, dyes must be boiled, bodies must work until shoulders ache. Even the goddess of wisdom lives inside a world built by tired people, and Athena knows. She sees the craftsman at his bench, lamplight trembling on bronze, the smell of hot metal, sharp and clean, the slow rhythm of a hammer, the moment when a mistake ruins hours of work, and the craftsman closes his eyes, breathing through frustration, starting again. That stubborn patience is also her domain. Still, Athena can be cruel when pride hardens into defiance. Arachne learned that. Imagine her workshop in Lydia, warm with the scent of wool and dye, sunlight falling through a high window and landing in bright rectangles on the floor, looms standing like tall wooden animals, threads stretched tight, the sound of a shuttle passing through warp, over and over, a soft clack that can become hypnotic. Arachne's hands are quick, her fingers move like small birds. The patterns she makes are so fine, people lean close, as if the cloth might whisper secrets. Praise gathers around her like perfume, and then the praise becomes poison. She says she needs no goddess. She says her skill is only her own. She says she could defeat Athena herself. Athena comes, at first, with a chance. She disguises herself as an old woman, a gentle voice, a warning offered like a cup of water. Do not challenge the gods, child. Keep your gift. Keep your life. Arachne refuses, so the contest happens. 2 looms, 2 tapestries, growing like visions in thread. Athena weaves divine order and the punishment of arrogance. Arachne weaves divine wrongdoing, the gods in their worst shapes, their disguises, their lies. The artistry is real. That is what makes the moment heavy. Arachne is not a fool with clumsy hands. She is brilliant. She is accurate. Her cloth is a mirror held up to Olympus, and Athena, seeing that mirror, reacts, not because the weaving is poor, because the weaving is true in a way that threatens authority. The goddess tears the tapestry. Threads snap. Colors break. The sound is like dry grass being pulled apart. Arachne's throat closes. Shame burns hotter than any dye pot. Then the transformation. Legs thinning, arms shrinking, fingers becoming smaller hooks, a body made light and hard at once. A spider, condemned to weave forever. It is a punishment, yes. It is also a strange mercy. If you stare at it long enough, the gift remains. The pride is cut away. Arachne survives, but she will never again stand tall enough to challenge the sky. Athena's justice is like that. It preserves what is useful and removes what is dangerous. In Athens, her image stands in gold and ivory, a towering statue, cold and radiant in lamplight. The shield bears battles. The aegis carries the Gorgon's face, eyes frozen in the moment before stone. Medusa's head is a reminder. Even beauty can become terror. Even terror can be turned into protection. When pilgrims walk into the temple, they feel small. The air is cool. The floor is smooth under bare feet. The scent of oil and old wood hangs in the dark. The statue does not move, yet it feels awake, as if it is thinking. You can almost hear the silence of a mind. Centuries turn, Rome rises, and Athena becomes Minerva, her name changing like a cloak thrown over familiar shoulders. In workshops on the Aventine Hill, craftsmen call for her blessing before they cut wood or shape bronze. In schools, students touch their tablets and pray for memory, for clear speech, for steady judgment. In the festival of Quinquatris, the city celebrates skill. 5 days of noise, of contests, of teachers honored, of poets competing, of craftsmen showing their best work. It is bright on the surface, but below it is the same human hunger, to be seen, to be excellent, to matter. Athena, Minerva, listens to all of it. She is invoked by philosophers too. In quieter rooms, men sit in colonnades and argue about wisdom, about law, about what makes a life good. They use her as a symbol, a way to name the calm part of the mind that can step back from anger. They speak of practical wisdom, of choosing the middle path, of building a city where disputes can be settled with words. It sounds clean in theory. In practice, it is always messy, because people are messy, because power is messy, because even the goddess of reason was born from violence. Swallowed mother, skull split, war cry echoing over Olympus. That origin never disappears. It is there in every statue, if you look long enough. The reminder that wisdom often comes with a scar. And still, I think Athena offers something that can soothe us. Not comfort like a blanket, comfort like a lamp, a small, steady light that helps you see your own thoughts without being consumed by them. So tonight, let the story widen until it becomes soft. Picture the Acropolis under moonlight, columns pale as bone, the city below breathing in sleep, a faint wind moving through olive leaves, making a sound like distant rain, an owl calling once, then falling quiet, its watchful eyes open while you do not need to be. Feel the ground under you, solid. Feel the slow rhythm of time, the way centuries pass like waves, always returning, always receding. You do not have to solve anything right now. You do not have to win. You do not have to be wise. You only have to rest. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands loosen their grip on the day. If thoughts come, let them drift like ash settling after a far-off fire. Harmless, light. Athena remains, but she can remain at a distance, a statue in a dark temple, a symbol on a coin. A quiet idea that wisdom can be patient, that violence can end, that even ancient rage can be given a home and told to sleep. And now, with the candle low and the room warm, let your eyelids grow heavy. There is another scene I like to linger on, because it is slow, and slowness is a doorway to sleep. Imagine the Parthenon being built, not as a perfect postcard, but as a living worksite. Morning after morning, men climb the hill carrying tools. Their sandals scuff dust. Their shoulders ache under the weight of wood and rope. The air is already warm, and the marble reflects light so sharply it hurts the eyes. Blocks arrive from the quarry like pale giants. Each one has been cut, hauled, dragged, coaxed up roads. Wheels creak, oxen snort. Sweat darkens tunics. When a block is set down, it lands with a dull, heavy sound that you feel in your teeth. Stone does not forgive mistakes. A mason runs his fingers over an edge, checking for a flaw. He spits on his thumb and rubs a mark away, not because spit is magic, but because it is what his hands have. He measures, then measures again. He taps with a small hammer and listens to the tone, as if the stone can answer. I always feel a quiet respect for that. Not heroic respect, just human respect. The respect you feel when you watch someone do a difficult thing carefully, without applause. As columns rise, grooves are carved into their shafts. Chips fall like pale petals. Dust coats eyelashes. The workers drink water that tastes of clay from a shared jug, and for a moment their throats are grateful. Above them, the sky is wide, and below them, the city is noisy. Markets, arguments, laughter, the constant little friction of people living close together. Yet up here, with the wind moving over the rock, it can feel separate, like the top of the world. When the temple is finished, it is not only a house for a goddess, it is a statement. It says, "We can shape stone into order. We can make something that holds its form against weather and time." Even that is a kind of prayer. And if you look closely, the temple is not perfectly straight. The floor rises slightly in the middle. The columns swell, almost invisibly. These are tricks of the eye, corrections for how humans see. The builders knew that pure geometry can look wrong to a tired human gaze. They built for the way we actually live, not for an ideal that ignores our senses. That feels like Athena too. Wisdom that adapts. Order that accounts for human weakness. Now, let the scene dim. Let the workers go home. Let the tools be set down. Let the last chip of marble fall and settle. Imagine the temple at night, empty, the huge doors closed, the statue inside holding its stillness, the gold catching a faint lamp glow like trapped sunlight. Outside, the city sleeps. Somewhere in a small room, a child dreams of an owl. Somewhere else, an old woman turns in her bed and touches the corner of a blanket, checking that it is there. A pot of embers cools. The smell of smoke becomes faint. Time keeps moving, but softly. And in that softness, you can let go a little more. One last small detail. Because small details are how the mind relaxes. Picture a simple clay lamp on a windowsill in Athens. The wick is a twisted thread. The oil is olive oil, faintly green, smelling of fruit and earth. The flame leans when the wind sneaks in, then straightens again. That tiny light throws a wavering shadow of the window frame across the wall, back and forth, like a slow pendulum. If a thought arrives, let it sit in that light for a moment, then let it fade as the shadow moves on. Nothing has to be finished tonight. Athena's stories can stay on the shelf now. Close the book. Feel the weight of it leaving your hands. The room is dim, the fire is low, and your breathing is the only thing you have to follow. Good night.